Welcome back to Business Insight. Once again, I'm Olaoluwa Awe, joined by Idahosa Osamanze and Ahmed Jayola. We're talking about electric vehicles. That sounds fun, right? Electric vehicles in Nigeria. By 2033, we want 30% of the locally manufactured or coupled vehicles in Nigeria to be electric vehicles so that we can compete favorably with other countries of the world who are massively investing in this. And that's been the conversation so far. You know, we've reviewed the plan. You know, Idahosa Osamanze talked about, extensively about the plan, what we hope to achieve and how. Now, let's talk about the challenges. Some of the challenges mentioned by the people that play in this field has been electricity. Because if you're talking about the vehicles, you're talking about charging stations. You know, so what do you think we need to do in that regard? Because
well, I think the issue is far more than electricity, and I think one can actually deal with and handle our electricity challenge if we become very serious as a people. Yeah, but for me, what the basic issues are, because we just spoke about competitiveness, and that's for me is one key area that is a huge challenge more than the electricity. You see, there's a way our people always feel that they can do some things. And they keep asking you to give them, you know, an enabling environment that almost will go to crumble your economy. And I think that's not the route to go if we have to become competitive. And I think government should be able to know that the way these things work is that people have built capacity and competencies in these areas. And you can't trade with them. And you are not going to be producing, because the document says we're not looking for just local consumption, but also producing for export. Even if you, like the document has done, and had given, for example, if you're bringing in electric car from outside, depending on the year, between 20 to 30% tariff on it, will still be cheaper than the one that are made here if you have not built capacity to be able to produce at the rate at which those who are bringing their vehicle in here. Now, in terms of durability, in terms of quality, if you're also not competing, what you are producing here will also not make the market. So I think the route to go in the first place, just to look at it, how it is happening globally, is how do we create an ecosystem in Nigeria where we can allow people who have the capacity already to set up factories here.
What kind of people are we talking about?
Now I give you one example. In the semiconductor industry, you see that Taiwan plays globally, controlling about 61% of semiconductor production globally. What America had done recently is to ask TMCM, the biggest producer, which constitutes about 51% of semiconductor production in the whole world, to build a factory in America so that they can be producing the semiconductor in America rather than in Taiwan. Now, what it does is that it brings the technology from Taiwan to America. America is not boasting that they have the capacity to do, but they are relying on the company in Taiwan to do that. And I think that's the kind of thing we should do. That's what Singapore did to move into where they are in terms of creating that ecosystem. They became the financial headquarters globally. So that's what we should invest in. If we're saying we are going to trust our local investors to build this capacity, and then we are expecting to be competitive, I tell you, it will be a story.
But what exactly is wrong with our, our local investors? Why don't you?
Yeah, but you see, the issue is that we are not pioneering this technology. Somebody is pioneering the technology.
Okay.
You are learning the technology. How are you going to play with the person who is the owner of technology? It's going to be difficult. So this is the issue. People have started investment in this area upward since the 1970s, when the energy crisis, OPEC holding everybody to ransom, started. The Western countries in Europe have been thinking alternative to fossil fuel since the 1970s. So researchers have gone into these things, And we're just beginning to think. And then you want to be competitive. It doesn't work that way. You need not to reinvent the wheel. All we need to do as a people is to say, yeah, people have capacity. We create that environment for them to bring in a guarantee that their investment here will be safe, and that we can also guarantee that there will be markets around locally for them, and then they can from here export to other places. Then we benefit from the excise duty, we benefit from sales tax and the rest of it to build our capacity. Then, of course, we cannot begin to plan into the future. But to say that in 10 years we are going to build this capacity, I don't think is something that is sustainable.
Well, if you agree with Idausa on that, you know, if we are looking at bringing this company, he said something about creating an environment that would attract these people to come into the country and come and put certain things in place. You know, what kind of environment are we talking about? So what do we need to put? Because it still boils down to having a structure that encourages foreign direct investment.
Every investor wants an enabling environment financially, structurally, and well, let's call it putting certain basic amenities in place. All right. To a very large extent, he mentioned something earlier. Okay. He said you don't want to create an enabling environment and fall into the trap of having, you know, negative consequences for your generations in future. Okay, the government would have to look at these areas carefully. The government would have to look at the kind of companies that are coming in, because there are companies that are responsible. There are irresponsible companies. Companies that will go to a country, and because that company is there, people are beginning to suffer cancer here and there, sicknesses here and there. So the company has to do its due diligence to know the companies, and of course, I am aware that the federal government has put in place what they call it, a tax relaxation for companies that are coming in to the country, and you know, certain amenities to encourage investment, okay, coming into the country. Now, I would like to believe that this would also work in the EV industry if that is part of their plan, right? If their plan is to invite these makers and bring them into the country, and then you put certain facilities in place that will enable them to say, okay, take for example, we can repatriate our funds. There's no wala. What do you call it? The tax is not too burdensome. It's okay. And then there is a, what do you call it? The level playing field available for them to compete and you know, have a market that they're going to sell. All these things are things that are, I won't call it common sense, but to a very large extent for those who are making policy, are things that they are supposed to put. You know,
let me speak to enabling environment.
Okay.
Take for example, the best PPP project that has worked in Nigeria was the Lekki Toll Gate. That was the best PPP that has worked in Nigeria.
Public-private partnership.
Partnership, yes. That has worked in Nigeria was the Lekki Toll Gate. And after the NSAS movement, no toll has been collected on that facility since then till now. That's upward of 2 years.
It's been scary even asking
people to, yeah. Now, what government had to do is to buy back the investor. In other words, the people who put in money there, because they can't collect money, what government will do, government will have to pay them upfront. And that's huge loss to government. And that's why, because the government has lost ability to be able to provide security for its own infrastructure, because no state actors are becoming more powerful than the state actor itself. So that's the enabling environment we're talking about.
Security.
Yeah. So if I bring in $15 billion into this company, and then, like they do in the East, and say, on Monday you cannot work, on Tuesday you cannot work, and government can't do anything about it.
And there's public holiday on Wednesday.
No, these are issues, and these are the things that we have to actually face head on to see if foreigners will actually have trust and confidence to put their investments in our environment. This is the issue. Government must do first thing first. And if we do first thing first, then you can actually create that atmosphere, an ecosystem where things are functional.
Well, now, According to Modern Intelligence, Africa's electric vehicle market was valued at about $11.94 billion in year 2021. And it is to reach $21.39 billion by 2027. And from the conversation we've had now, you believe that the these foreign companies or institutions that have a better hold of creating these vehicles should be allowed to come in and do the work. Then what is the place of local investors? Like, this is a huge business opportunity if we want to factor in these numbers. The locals should be able to benefit one way or the other. What's the place of local investors?
Yeah, they will benefit. You see, I think another thing that we can also be looking at is that this thing actually cut across not just production of passenger vehicles. There are also things that you can also develop locally. Of course, like things they use in a factory, motorcycle, tricycles. All these things, we can grow the competencies of the things that we can be using locally. Now, what that means is also you are participating in that because it's not just the four-wheel drive that has the emission issues. You also have tricycles, you also have motorbikes. Now, we can actually grow competence in those things, factory, trucks, and the rest of it. Yeah, but you see, because the man who's going to buy a vehicle is buying it for efficiency. I know some years ago, one of my late friends, God bless his soul, and he said, look, we have to patronize what we make in Nigeria. So he went to buy a brand new vehicle made in Nigeria. I don't want to mention the name of company. Now, he bought the vehicle and he was supposed to be using it as his official car. From the day he bought it, he could not drive it. That vehicle was parked.
The locally made one.
It was locally made. It was parked. So he went to buy Tokumbo, and that was what he was using. Now, it's not that he didn't have energy to want to buy, because the real reason is that if somebody is going to make a purchase, you see that the person, what you are delivering, the quality. How are we going to measure quality, for example? How are we going to monitor the quality of what we're buying that is not creating more problem for the consumer? At the end of the day, because it's consumer experience that is important. Yes, the local people will say, oh, we have capacity. But then, that's least to be determined whether the capacity is actually there. But you see, the market is going to grow, but it's not going to grow from within out. It's going to grow from outside in.
Yes.
And so what that means is that actually, as the market is expanding, more money is leaving Africa, creating employment in Asia, because China is doing well in that industry, North America is doing well in that industry, Western Europe is doing well in that industry, and then they create employment over there, and then we suffer what it is. So this is the real issue, and that's why I'm thinking of that collaboration, so that we can domicile some of the money here. And then, of course, the 1 million job creation we are talking about, we can achieve it.
We also need to talk about how that collaboration should look like, because the moment you begin to encourage foreign investors into your country, you need to structure it in such a way that the country also directly benefits from whatever is being made in terms of the number of people they work with, so that you can ensure that they also train your own people. It's part of it's been a major point.
Yeah. Well, there's something that just came to my mind now. If you look at the value chain of that industry, one of the primary products you need is rubber.
Yes.
Now, apart from maybe the rubber factory in Iyanomo in Benin City, I'm not sure there's any rubber plantation that is of substance anywhere around. In the 70s, in the 60s, we have plenty of rubber plantations everywhere. That people were tapping rubbers and can actually get raw rubber, because this industry requires it. Now, we've all cut down our rubbers for other uses for farm and for settlement. Now, so you will need rubber, and you can't produce it locally. Now, you can't plant rubber today and start to harvest it in 10 years. It's a long-term investment, even in that value chain. So you see, what that will mean is that it's either you are doing recycling of old rubber you have, which will not be able to address the 200,000 cars per annum projection. Otherwise, you have to also import synthetic rubber, which you are not producing here, and somebody is going to supply to you. And then, of course, capital is also moving out here. So talking about local content, is you see, it's not just about having a local entrepreneur who brings India to come and assemble vehicle here. It's more than that. We should be looking at it holistically from tier 1, tier 2 to tier 3 suppliers and see in this value chain, what are we going to invest and how many years will it take us for us to reach that threshold where we can say we have developed enough local capacity to be able to compete globally.
You seem to want to say something about that, Ahmed.
So the thing is this, when we say development is attached to a lot of things, right? You see many of the issues that I don't know why I find it so difficult to mention you by name. Idahosa has been saying, all right? Idahosa has touched the most essential things any government should look into, okay? The challenge is how many governments would actually adhere to many of these things. There are things that we have wasted. There are plans that we have trashed. There are things that we ought to have looked into the future for, that now the EV industry is going to need. Now that these things are not available, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to say we want to start it all over again? How much time are we going to spend? So you now see that development is stalled because we have mismanaged our resources. We have mismanaged our capacity. And so many things that you now need would have to be shipped in. Which is one of the reasons why he was talking about the fact that a lot of money is going to go out from Africa instead of coming in. You can attract investors, but the investors are going to take your money.
So let's quickly touch on some of the key goals of this NADIP, which is to generate 1 million jobs. Let's quickly break that down. What kind of jobs are we looking at here?
Oh, well, a lot of jobs, direct jobs, indirect jobs. You see, because the value chain is massive. If you look at the value chain, it's massive. So you will create both direct and indirect jobs. 1 million job is child's play, really, if we have a sufficient investment in the value chain of this electrical manufacture.
Now, we've been talking about production. Let's also talk about demand. Apart from electricity, one of the key challenges that people who play in this industry say they have is the need to convince Nigerians to actually even embrace EVs and leave their the normal petrol and diesel powered vehicles to convert. In fact, there's even a campaign to currently even encourage Nigerians to convert their vehicles to use CNG, that's gas. Instead, but now we're going totally electric. How easy do you think that will be, and how do you think we can actually really convince a lot of Nigerians to patronize, even government officials, to patronize locally manufactured EVs?
So here is the first biggest issue that many people are going to face. Social media.
How?
Good. There are EVs that are exploding in the US, in China, in so many parts of the world. People are going to take advantage of this, especially those that know that this industry is not going to pay them, even though they don't know how feasible the industry would be and how much stretch really the industry is going to be. But they will start negative publicity, and they're going to start online. Now, when this negative publicity starts, the question now is, the government is facing an uphill battle. How do you convince people to use something that someone has already posted online and it actually happened? Teslas, have been, veering off the road. You've been having a lot of issues with this kind of vehicles. Okay, so now let's come back home. Now we are saying that, okay, so the car that I know that if I turn it this way, it will go this way. If I turn it that way, it will go that way. Someone now tells me to come and put my trust in a car that has a button that will go this way. And I'm supposed to trust it to go that way on 3rd Mainland Bridge.
One of the worries that...
Sorry, just to to a little take the attention away from what Ahmed has said, is also look at the market structure.
Okay.
Yes.
You see, globally, the way these things are being done, and I think it's also captured in the plan and in the document, that, see, the buyers will not be looking at selling this car to individual to own them. Because the consumption of car globally has also changed. They're talking about on-demand mobility. People are talking about mobility as a service. Now, if you're really interested in this sector and you want it to grow, what you can also do is to see how to also look at the structure and the way people are consuming car these days. Nobody wants to own a car elsewhere again. I want to go out, I need an SUV, I just call a company and they take me to where I'm going and they bring me back. Tomorrow I need a Mercedes-Benz, I call somebody, they bring me. So the consumption pattern is also changing. So the structure of the industry is changing. So those who are going to invest in that industry must be looking at this partnership also.
With logistic companies?
Oh yes, because people have to definitely invest in this, and because nobody wants to own a car because of the cost of maintaining one.
Now, let's also talk about this other side, which is a good number of Nigerians, because if you look at the poverty rate in Nigeria, it's still quite high according to several researchers. Now, a good number of people would not be able to single-handedly say, I want to buy electric vehicles, even if they like it. So the way to go, which we've been seeing, is the government buying it. We see, or finding a way to partner with companies to have it, you know, for public access. Do you also?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That they call it mobility as a service. In other words, you have, even the producer in the interim can actually have a pull of that car. So all you need to do is to put a call to the distribution and said, okay, I need the vehicle today to go from here. You see, just like they call it Lagos Ride, for example. You have InDrive, you have Uber. Yeah. So what you do is that this vehicle are produced and put into a pool. And then citizens are using. Pay as you go or pay as you use. That's how these cars are going to be sold. But if you are expecting that Nigerians are going to invest in buying electric vehicles at the rate of poverty in the environment and the cost of production, which is also very exorbitant, we may not achieve that in a very short run. It has to be a long run project.
Now, as we wrap up the show, let's quickly speak to research and development in the automotive industry. You know, you have suggested that we bring in these foreign companies to do the job, but at some point we also need to learn how to do it by ourselves. How should we go about this?
Yeah, this is very simple, and I think we can follow the Singapore model.
Okay.
What Singapore did was, while they were investing in the finance sector, they ensured that the best of their children were sent abroad to go study this technology and come back to Singapore to work with them. That was one direction. And then they also invested in science and technology massively in their country. And that's why when you look at education to growth index, Singapore is #1. In mathematics, they are #2 because they have also built their industry, their education industry, to fit the kind of environment they were creating. So what that will do for us is that the Nigerian universities needs a lot of investment so that we can actually be training people who can come out and then we'll be able to compete worldwide.
On a lighter note, if you send a lot of Nigerians out, or some Nigerians out, do you think they will come back? Do you think they will come back to?
No, so you see that the issue is orientation.
Okay.
Okay. There are a lot of Nigerians that are desiring to come back home. And it's because the government is beginning to put certain facilities and structures in place. However, like he has said, the motive behind getting this kind of things done should be generational, not political, if I put it that way. Yes, it must be generational. So when you have a generational plan, that's when you would think of, okay, so who are the people that are going to maintain this? And then you send them out. And you send them on condition, right? So nobody has the opportunity to just go there and then change passports, do these regular things that everybody does.
All people that are jackpot, they are looking for greener pasture. Yes. If the greener pasture at home, they will come back and they will work.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Thank you very much, Idausa Osamanze, for your time on Business Insight today. It's been fun, it's been insightful, really. Ahmed Jayola, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And that's the program for today. I am Olaoluwa Awe. Join us tomorrow, same time, same station. Have a nice day.